Ho, 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 everyone, and welcome back to the Nullfied Take channel here on YouTube, where we've got the TNT takes for you on the finale of Survivor UK. And I'm joined by two very special guests. I'll start off with the wonderful lady to my right. She is the stunning, the amazing, the charming, the most perfect co-host anyone could ask for. It is the great, wonderful Vee. Vee, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me again.
Of course. It would not be a jolly good time if I didn't have my perfect elf to the Santa Mucky.
I do have a hat, but it's kind of driving me a bit crazy, so I'll put it on for a sec. I'm Christmassy. All right, that's done.
But B, we're not alone tonight. You know, normally we do have Tom, but he's running a bit late, so the misogynist will be coming back a bit later. But we're joined by one of the greatest Survivor podcasters out there. He runs his own channel. One of the biggest Survivor podcasters in the UK is the great, the fantastic, the magnificent Bandit. Bandit, how are you?
I am great. Thank you so much. This is something that we've been trying to organize since the start of Survivor UK. Obviously, I did the preseason promo with Chris, but we've been chatting about it week after week. And finally, on the finale, we've got here. It's like 9 o'clock in the evening for you guys, I think. It's 8 o'clock in the morning here. So just to show you how the time zones are getting on everyone at home, but we're going to work out.
Yeah, I just want to apologize for everyone real quick because we were meant to do the finale recap last week. Unfortunately, I had a bit of an injury with my head. I unfortunately passed out, and so it's kind of a bit of a last-minute scramble. But it's all made up for because we've Bandit here, right? So you are perfectly welcome for me passing out because now we have Bandit able to finally join us. So Bandit, tell us, what has been your thoughts on Survivor UK?
Oh, I mean, just firstly getting Survivor UK back was just insane. Like, it's been like 20 years since we've got the show. And I'm sure when Survivor New Zealand came out, you know, in 2016 or 2018, you were excited about it. And I mean, I feel like every single week my expectations for the series has gotten higher. And I've came out of this series like, okay, there's obvious flaws, but I couldn't help but enjoy it. It's like something deep down in my heart is like, man, that was quite fun.
Yeah, so I mean, I've said this almost every podcast, but I'm not really a fan of American Survivor anymore because I feel like it's too game body.
Just call it Survivor, just the Americans, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But something that I love about Survivor UK is I feel like it really brought back what Survivor was, and something that Vee and I talked about it a lot. So not everyone is this great strategic mastermind like a George, like a D, for example. You do have your shies who are just, you know, supposedly strategic but have done nothing wrong in the game. You do have your Jessers, your Hannahs, your Leilanis, and while we may feel frustrated by them, they're still an interesting character to watch throughout the season. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. You see, like, your Christopher and Lee argument, like, you wouldn't see a massive blow up like that on Survivor US, where everything is so calculated and everyone's like, well, if I do this and I lose your jury vote and then it harms my agency. Whereas this time, just everyone's going at each other. They don't really care about the jury throats. They're just screaming at each other. And I feel like it's that, as you say, Mucky, sort of that emotional kind of sense to it that we saw in middle school Survivor that we're kind of seeing back again. And I mean, obviously we saw it at the final Tribal Council as well.
Yeah, and V, I'll just ask you this. We've been talking a lot throughout this entire season that yes, the castaways are strategic, they just aren't showing that just yet. And I really feel like throughout this whole season, you've been absolutely spot on about that. You know, where the first half, not much was really being said, not much was really going on, but then from the merge onwards, everyone was making big moves left, right, and center. How did you feel the whole season played out overall?
Yeah, I do think also, I think as a viewer, we were eased into this whole concept, perhaps to whether they were sort of pandering more to the new viewer because it's, you know, the first time on UK television, rather than pandering to people who have been watching it for over 20 years. I really do think there was a sense of easing the viewer into the whole concept, which was pretty boring from the start.
Yeah.
Then we got to post-merge and they're like, oh, and everything just came out. So I do wonder if there was a lot more strategic discussions happening pre-merge than we were actually able to view.
Yeah. So Bandit, obviously, you know, like with me, I haven't seen the first two. Has there been 2 UK survivors?
There's been 2, yeah. I saw bits and pieces.
How has that transition been like from those 2 seasons to this current season? Do you feel like the gameplay has really changed?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of like your old Survivor click of like, okay, right, we've made it to the merge and there's 9 people and we've got 5, so we're going to take out the 4 in the bottom, and then there's 3 within the 5, and then there's us 2 in the 3, so we're going to take out that person, and then we're the final 2. And this time, I mean, Vee, even you said quite rightfully, is like the merge hit and it was just an explosion, and there was all this gameplay. We got Christopher playing idols, we had Tanuka and Doug back to back playing really hard and getting taken out by plurality votes in their eliminations, and it was just super insane to see. And obviously we have things like idols and extra votes that weren't around 20 years ago, so I feel like in terms of gameplay, just this is so much more different than the first 2 seasons, and kind of like the gameplay that we saw, it just is far better than the first Survivor UK seasons, which is a good thing in my opinion.
So how would you compare this? Because have you seen like Survivor New Zealand and Australian Survivor 2016?
Yeah, seen them all, yeah.
Oh, perfect. How would you feel this, like, I guess, compares to like the New Zealand Survivor, you know, 2017, the first reboot season Australian Survivor, and I guess South African as well? How would you compare it to those? Would you say it's like on par or?
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty on par. It's quite interesting because when obviously you do these reboots, you tend to see like casts that have a bit less game knowledge. So obviously you have people that they're just trying to like learn things at the start. So you get a bit of a slower pre-merge, but then the merge happens and then insanity happens. I mean, Survivor South Africa, the Philippines is a great example of just, okay, you put 10 people in, 3, 2, 1, go, and they're all just causing chaos. But it is kind of similar to New Zealand and the first installment of Australian Survivor in the aspect of that honor was a very big thing. And we even saw that kind of the final tribal council where it's like, okay, were you playing an honorable game? And some people were kind of shot down because of it. Christopher very much reminded me, if we're going to be talking about Australian Survivor, kind of like your Nick Iadonza, who obviously got a lot of flag in his season for playing the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Vee, I'm so sorry to say this, but Chris came second. You've been backing him the whole way through. Oh, joint second. He tied with Leilani. He tied with Leilani.
That's right. I didn't even think of it like that. Yeah, joint second. Oh, God. I mean, we could unpack this whole thing, and I'm sure we will. I have even seen comparisons to him being a bit of a Richard Hatch, even that with the jury, that sort of, blaming him for playing the game almost. So I was disappointed. I wasn't surprised, but I was disappointed that the jury went for more of a middle ground as opposed to the way over the other end.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's
start.
I
love Chris. All the best to him. I want to see him return in another season.
Absolutely. I feel like he's locked in for an All-Stars. Would you agree, Bandit?
Absolutely. And I mean, he is just so excited about the game, and you can tell that once he had that experience, he's like, okay, I need to go out again. So I'd say if the timing works out, we're seeing Christopher back again.
I feel like he's a more positive version than George, right? Where, George came in, he's like, I want to create chaos and just start drama because I feel like it, whereas Chris is like, I want to cause chaos, not so much the drama, but, let's keep the chaos going. Let's blindside their front center. But, sometimes there is a cast for that and a cast not for that. And I feel like Chris and George on their retrospective seasons were just both part of cast that just did not respect that type of gameplay.
I think the difference for me between George and Chris is that Chris didn't seem quite as calculated. Everything seemed a bit like an accident, and him just trying desperately to get things to work. And I think that takes someone with a huge amount of charisma and just subtle gameplay to be able to make those moves without being too calculating. Everything seemed to be a knee-jerk reaction, and he was playing it week by week rather than looking too far ahead, which is what made it so exciting.
Absolutely. But let's go right into the final five. So we start off in the episode. We've got our top five. Got Pigleg, Hannah, Leilani, Matt, and Chris. And we've got an opening outpost twist where they have to at first select a leader, which they chose Hannah. And they get to choose, they're like 5 different tokens, each with a different time on how long you can call your family members. Bandit, we've never seen a twist like this before. How did you think about incorporating this low-key kind of strategy into talking to your loved ones?
Yeah, I thought it was a more interesting way to do the family visit on Survivor. It's interesting they didn't have their families out there. It was just a video recording, although it probably was easier with the twist. And I mean, we kind of see in these Survivor seasons, like Mucky, I don't know how much Survivor US you watch, but kind of as we saw from the modern era, the final 5, they have these twists where like you have to do this word scramble, then you get an advantage. And it's just the final 5 round. I think the producers are very conscious about being able to have enough content to fill the episodes. Since, I mean, as we saw, like the final 5 booths are typically just get rid of the big threat and everyone just kind of dogpiles on them unless they win immunity. So the dynamics aren't really that interesting. And then the finale episode, obviously, you have Final Tribal Council. So I guess it was just them having this safety net to ensure they could hit the 60 minutes. But I think it was interesting seeing kind of like Pegleg being there and saying, do I take 5 minutes or do I take 15 minutes? And then there's that social element as well with your cast.
Yeah. So Vee, if you're there, I know that you have a kid. I unfortunately don't. If you're there put in that spot, are you just saying, you don't stuff everyone? I've got a kid. I want to go for the cheeky 15. Or would you want to be somewhat considerate to others?
Well, I mean, you know how I feel about all the family visits and everything on Survivor. So I find it all a complete yawn fest. I do like how this really spiced it up, because I couldn't have just sat and watched them all have a phone call with their families. I would have had to turn off and go do something else. Me personally, I think it the Hannah way, the sort of middle ground where you take your advantage, and I would sort of play the mum card, but I wouldn't go too crazy with it unless it was offered to me and I was one of the last people and they're like, no, 15, you take it. Also, because you're seeing your family, very soon, I just would have loved to have seen another twist, another advantage, another something as well in there with that whole thing. But that's just me because I'm biased against the spending like 20 minutes of an episode talking about someone's family that I don't know. I don't care. Especially this close to the end, I don't care. But no, I probably would have tried to take a nice middle route so I didn't sort of upset anyone.
But if you're the first person there, though, Bandit, do you just take the longer one, but then just lie and say that you took like the shortest one, like the 30 second,
30 seconds.
Yeah, I was wondering if like Hannah was going to use the 15-minute and be like, oh, there was a no time token and I took no time, although not really sure if that would have played out. But I think if you're going first, you kind of just go middle ground. You take the 5 minutes and then you're seen as like the good person, because obviously Leilani and Pegleg have kids and all, but you didn't take the worst option, but it is a tough situation for her. And like Hannah had about like 20 family members, so I mean, she had a lot of people to chat to, so I can understand it, of course.
If there's one family member, I'll start with you, V. If there's one family member that you could have talked to in that moment, who would you have picked?
Oh, look, you could have popped my kid on, but then the short amount of time would have been taken up with so, you know, because he's only 5. He doesn't, it would have just been nice to see him. Probably, you know, my husband, my kid, I would have loved that, you know, and just to be able to go, I'm final 5, guys. Oh my God. Just enough time to say that. But, you know, I wonder if it almost make it a bit worse because you're in survivor world and then you see your real world so close, but yet so far, if that would be more painful than to try and just go completely out of real world. I don't know. I'm sure I'd be excited to see them, but it almost make it complete. Like, you know, we saw Leilani really struggle emotionally before she even saw them. It obviously took her out of survivor world and into her real world and what she was missing and what the people she hadn't seen. So I think it sort of made it more painful for her, but it's close to the end. So, you know.
How about you, bro? Who would you pick to have on the family visit?
Oh, see, I'm kind of similar to like V. If like I had my dad online, he would just go off on a random tangent. I'd be like, Dad, I have 5 minutes. Come on, let's keep going. But I don't know, probably just my friends because like they'd be more into Survivor. They'd watch the YouTube channel, so I'd be able to, in my drunken state of having no food and being paranoid, they'd be like, no, look, like you need to do this, and I'd be like, okay, I got you. I would be interested to hear from V's perspective as like a mother. If she was in Hannah's shoes, she was the first person, what kind of token she would take out of the 5?
Oh, well, no, I think I'd have to go middle ground, like you said. I don't think I would be willing to make, but you know, put me in that situation. I don't know. But I think it's you know, I even sort of, I don't think being a parent means that you miss someone. There is a different relationship between a child and a parent, but I don't think you miss someone more or should get special treatment because you're a parent. I almost sort of felt a bit uncomfortable with that whole discussion that they had of course, the parents and grandparents get more time because everyone there is someone's child as well and someone's opportunity to see their child. And you love your spouse, you love your parents. So I would feel there would only be, I think, certain people that would go, oh, of course, she's a parent, have all the time you need. But I think there would be a lot of people who would go, oh, so they're getting special treatment because they just happen to have a kid and I haven't had the opportunity to have a kid yet, you know, or something like that. So I would be very careful if I was up first. And yeah, I would take good old 5 minutes middle ground, just like there are some more. I felt I only needed 5 minutes to say what I needed to say.
Fair enough.
Yeah, if it's me, I'm dropping the 15 minutes and I'm calling up the boys from home. You know, you know, I want to see them, you know, crack open a couple of cheeky Heinekens and you know, just tell me all the shit that's going on at home.
That'd be quite good if you just spent your time just learning about gossip, like you didn't even say about anything that happened on the island.
Exactly.
Just like, what's the boys doing?
Exactly.
You could also you could do the trick of like, I spoke to my sick grandmother and I needed that time to talk to my sick grandmother.
That needs to happen sometime. We need a Johnny Fairplay. That's what we need to see.
It would be really funny though to see a cast like Survivor UK, but then you have like a Johnny Fairplay or like a George just come on and just steamroll the whole thing.
I think they would have been bored.
Yeah, because you know we did have Russell try it in Australian Survivor, but that didn't really work out too well. But
no.
Yeah, let's move along though. The immunity challenge once again, V. You know we've been praising all the challenges in Survivor UK, the pre-merge and the individual ones. You know, it's such great Survivor classics. But Bandit, I heard in your recent video that you weren't. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You were saying that you weren't exactly that big of a fan that they're taking all of the best challenges throughout US Survivor and putting them into one season.
So, like, as individual challenges, I love every single one of them. I mean, Pinball Wizard is one of my favorites as well. And I really enjoy when I look at each individual challenge. It's like, okay, that makes sense. But when you look at like the pre-merge challenges altogether, it's just all physical and pure physical strength challenges. I think I was on another podcast where I was talking about how it's really only strength that's being tested in a lot of the challenges. And the unfortunate thing is they showed pre-merge, or well, post-merge, sorry, that they can do all these different challenges. You can do a balance challenge. Puzzles actually exist. Who would have known that? And they started testing different skill sets, and strength is almost a deficit in some challenges. Like Nathan could barely fit his foot into that last tree stump on the balance challenge that he did. And it's just kind of unfortunate the way they went about it, that yes, I like all the different challenges, but some puzzles pre-merge, or maybe some balance challenges, some more balance challenges, or like a memory challenge or something, it would have helped even up the playing field. So maybe different challenges to test different skills next time. But man, Pinball Wizard is fun.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's really hard because, something we've talked about is how with this season of Survivor, especially the pre-merge, they really try to cater to just a casual audience and not much strategy, a lot of camp life, and just here's a physical challenge, right? Because when you look at, Nathan versus Lee or Nathan versus Doug, it's like, okay, two giants, 8 packs, biceps the size of a school bus, going at it. You love seeing that, right? You love seeing these big, beefy guys going at it. And even like, Tanuki against Hannah, for example, as well. But I guess, when you're a massive Survivor fan and you can see how someone like an Ashley or even some of the pre-merge women like a Rachel, but, both Rachels even could have potentially done really well in a challenge that just isn't quite physical.
And like, if you look at someone like Ren, they say in their preseason bio, like, I was practicing all these Survivor puzzles. I think they even they did the Evie like kind of aspect of I'm just going to 3D print puzzles and like practice them before going out. There was not a single puzzle that they managed to experience on the island. So I think if they were able to like compete in like a Survivor US challenge, which is okay, physical at the start, but then you have the puzzle to make up ground, I think they would have been a lot more successful in that format, unfortunately.
But we do see Mad Dog Chris win the Final 5 immunity challenge, but it's quite weird though in terms of the strategy, because even before the vote, we saw everyone talking, and no one was really talking about Chris as a threat. Vee, what do you think was going through all of their minds?
I think they were preparing for a bitter jury. They went, Chris has no friends, so we'll take him to the end. I think someone even said, I can't remember who, was like, definitely taking Chris to the end. So I think that was it. They no longer saw him as a threat. They saw him as a pariah. And and hopefully that should have been his ticket to win, but
Yeah, I did feel really bad for Chris because no one wanted to work with him the entire game. And the only time people wanted to work with him was when people realized, oh, there's no way he's going to win. Like, he was much more of a bigger threat when he hadn't done anything, but now he's done something. Oh, gosh, what a go. What was your thoughts on this Final 5 episode, Bandit?
Yeah, it was pretty good. Pinball Wizard is a challenge that they've broken in Survivor US the first time they did it. They broke it in Australian Survivor, I think so as well. So you can only do it in Survivor UK or maybe Survivor South Africa. But yeah, it's a good challenge. And I think it was quite interesting. I mean, Pegleg was set up to be quite the threat. It sucked to see him go because you could just tell that he was so excited for the game. But I think the dynamics were quite interesting about like, okay, Pegleg's biggest target and Chris's one immunity. Now what? And everyone's kind of like scrambling for another name.
Yeah. So Bandit, we had a deal going on in our last podcast because it was kind of spoiled-ish that Pegleg was going, because Tom pointed out that Doug or someone else was crying, and why else would they cry for anyone else except for Pegleg, right? But I didn't think it was Pegleg. I thought it was Chris. And we made a deal that if Chris went, then Tom and Vee would have to give me something. If Pegleg went, I would have to give Tom and Vee something. But we never actually decided on what we're going to give over. So, Bandit, I'll let you be the deciding factor. What should I give up to Tom and Vee for losing the bet?
I don't know, like V-Bucks. I don't know, like
Vee.
is that a currency that you can use? I don't know.
Now, is this
what do you own, Mucky? Your firstborn?
I'll give
Well, how about this, Mucky? If we both end up on a reality show together, you have to give me an advantage to help me win.
Oh.
You have to give me, what was it, the car, or something like that, you know?
Oh, yeah. If we're in Squid Game and it's the final round, I just have to lose the rock, paper, scissors every time.
Yeah. And it may be, it could be next year, it could be 10 years from now. I'll be coming to collect it.
All right, sounds good. So whenever Vee and I, or Tom and I, are in a reality show, I have to somehow give them an advantage over me.
Yes.
Fair enough. That sounds good.
And it won't be Survivor because there's no way I'm able to do that.
Well,
maybe you'll be my brother one day.
Well, if it's Survivor and you know you're going home, I'd just be like, oh, medical evacuation.
Yeah. You could just break my leg so I get medically evacuated. I go, I was going to win as well, maybe.
Yeah.
And then I've gone out with pride instead of being voted out.
Oh, I was going to win. 6 days into the game, I knew I was going to win.
So there we go. That's the reference. Agreement.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we do see Pigleg get taken out here. Such a heartbreaking way for Pigleg to go as well. It was really a case of what can he do, right? Like he doesn't have an idol. He's not really someone who would go out searching for idols. Everyone knows he's got a giant threat. He's got a prosthetic leg as well. Vee, what could have Pigleg done here?
I really don't know. I think, it was a very old school mentality to place him as the biggest threat, considering there was nothing on his resume. He just sort of played with honor and friendships and like skill. But I don't know. He would have had to have been quite cunning and manipulative, which just wasn't his game style. He would have had to find an idol, wasn't his game style. So I think it was, unless he needed to win immunity.
Yeah.
That was it. That was the only way.
How about you, Bandit? Because obviously we've both seen a lot of seasons of Survivor, and quite often there's like a Pigleg or even like a Luke, for example, who's made it so deep into the game, even though it's a big threat, they've got this massive story. How do you get out of this situation?
I mean, as Vee said, it's tough. I do have to discredit Pegleg at the tribal council. He sees Christopher wearing the immunity necklace and he's like, I would have voted for Christopher if he didn't win immunity, but he did, so now I'm scrambling. And you don't really say that to the person that won immunity, that if you didn't win it, I would have tried to get you out. But at that situation, like, it was set up even before the challenge that it was Christopher versus Pegleg, and it's one of those situations where your number one target wins immunity. So it was tough for him. As Vee said, maybe considering the threat level that Hannah had, maybe throwing Hannah under the bus and trying to get rid of her. But I don't think that was Pegleg's style of game. And it would have involved him like really making some cutthroat deals to be able to survive that round.
Yeah. I think we both agree on this, but Pigleg is locked in for All-Stars or Heroes versus Villains, right?
Yes. It would be so good.
Absolutely. I was just thinking, how funny would it be if he pre-made a fake idol, but he had hidden it in his leg?
I knew you were going to say that.
I mean, he just walks along the show, everyone's taking him first dates. Well, hang on a second. And he just pulls it out, and it's like something he bought from Etsy.
It's like a 5-course meal just stuffed in there. Everyone's wondering why he's gaining weight on the island.
But yeah, unfortunately for Pigleg, a robbed hero at the final 5. Let's move on to the final 4. We get, once again, a classic Survivor finale challenge. This challenge has been used in Australian Survivor a lot. Like Bandit, how many times have they used this in Australian Survivor?
They've done 2016, 2017, 2018 they didn't do it. I think it had the element of like All-Stars, like the pulling on the rope and like the staggered steps. So I think it was like 2 or 3. But Yeah, it wasn't as like sadistic as some of the more recent Australian Survivor challenges, which is just JLP cranking a thing and making them go over this massive cliff. So there's that at least. But I love this challenge.
Yeah, I feel like Vee is such a great classic Survivor challenge where it's like it's not physical. It's not like you have to. It's not about grip strength or anything like that. It's literally just how much do you want this, right? Your feet are in pain, your wrist is in pain, but can you really push through that pain? Like, what's your thoughts on these types of challenges?
I love them. I love to watch them, and I love when they have the courage to do a challenge that could go for 12 hours. This only went for I think about 5. But I love that. And I love that in old school US Survivor when you'd have challenges go for 12 hours, 13 hours. And I know it's so unrealistic for production to do them. And now they add something that makes them go a bit shorter. But I just thought, oh, this could go on for a really long time. I'm here for it. So, yeah, it was just old school. It was fun. And like you said, it comes down to how much are you willing to switch off and push through for that. It's not hard. It's not physically challenging. It is mentally challenging. And it's a level playing field at that point. So I loved it.
Yeah. And, we do see a really great fight between Leilani and Chris specifically in the end. But Leilani, did she pass out? Did she slip off? What really happened with Leilani? Do either of you two know?
I think you step off, your legs don't work.
Yeah, I think she just had an awkward angle because they had to go onto one leg, and I just don't think her position was that great. Like, you could see her quivering. Fair play to Christopher, because I think he soiled himself and he had to stay there for about 4 hours.
Yeah.
He kept on saying it's like, oh dear.
Yeah. It's something I did notice that as soon as Leilani felt, you could kind of tell he was ready to jump off as well. Like, yes, finally we're done.
Yeah. He had this moment of, yay! And then, oh, are you okay? Yay!
Yeah. Thankfully, Leilani was okay, and Chris wins the final immunity. I'm not sure about either of you two, but I thought Chris had this. All he needs to do is just vote off Matthew, and there's no way that he loses to Hannah or Leilani. But no, they vote off Hannah. What did Hannah do, Bandit?
I don't know. Well, here's the thing: is like it's one of those things that the editor misleading. Like, for example, Heather in Survivor 41, she was apparently a massive jury threat. Who's Heather? And we have this like setup of Hannah being this massive jury threat. If she gets to the end, the final 3, she wins. And like, anyone here, what's your favorite 3 Hannah confessionals throughout the season? No. So yeah, it just didn't really have proper setup. But I think on the island, like, Hannah was a super well respected. I mean, we talked about honor there. Hannah was a super honorable person, had 2 votes locked in, probably got the rest of the votes from people. So yeah, I think that it made sense, but just the edit didn't exist.
Yeah, I feel like this was Leilani's greatest move in Survivor UK, where she was like, you know what? I'm seen as a GOAT. So in order for me to win this game, I need to take the 2 power plays to the end and blindside the other GOAT. And
tell people that she started playing last week.
And tell people she started playing last week.
Just help her resume.
Yeah, and it was so funny at Tribal when Chris was like, so who you think of voting out? And she's like, oh, the biggest threat to my game. Who is that? And even Joel was like, yeah, who's that? Like, he was just asking Leilani who she's voting for. And she's like, oh, it's Hannah. And nobody voted for Matthew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, even though they went straight to Tribal Council, do you think Chris should have tried to rally the numbers against Matthew, perhaps on the spot?
I think it would have been interesting because we got a lot of like setup to. I mean, I don't really know if Christopher would have won the game with the configuration he had, but I think if he got rid of Matthew, there's more moves that he could claim at least. Like the Tunike blindside, he can just literally say was his move. But I just don't know if the jury was ever going to vote for him. I think he loses to Hannah at the end as well. Which I thought if Christopher went to the end from like the final 7 and on, like, oh yes, he's this locked in person. He's got this. Matthew's his only threat. But then we get to a situation where like, no, people don't really respect Christopher, and I don't know if he could win in any final three situation.
Yeah. Now it was really tricky for Chris in this fight because I feel like you're almost like the Russell in the first Heroes versus Villains, right? Where it's like, I mean, at least the difference between Russell and Chris that maybe Chris potentially realized that he wasn't going to be getting that many votes. So it's like, how do you change the jury's mind? Do you take out the most likable person? Do you take out the strategic threat? Do you try and make it like a big move at like the final vote? Bandit, what do you think you do if you're like a Chris or Russell in the spot?
Yeah, I think that Christopher made the right move in trying to get rid of Hannah because, I mean, yeah, like you can, like Leilani, I think V, you're saying like Leilani is kind of banking on like a bitter jury, but then also like in Christopher's aspect, Matthew, he betrayed Tanuke and he could have had bitterness. And then Leilani, she also could have had bitterness. So I guess that was also an aspect he was banking on. Hannah just seemed like someone that everyone liked and they couldn't say a bad word about. And as much as like the strategy is important, it is a social game at the end of the day. And quite a lot of the jury, even as we see in like modern Survivor seasons and Survivor US, they might just end up voting for people that they like. Like Carla, for example, in Survivor 43, she's came out recently and she said that she just voted Gabler because Cassidy, she would sulk all the time. If she didn't get invited to a challenge or a reward after the challenge, she would just be upset back at camp. So even like in the modern, like really radical thinking of Survivor, it's still that aspect of, no, you need to connect to people and get along with them.
There's a big rivalry between Cassidy and Carla still, is there? Like, I feel like it started off small, but then it just keeps escalating ever since the season.
Yeah.
The season ended.
I don't know. They just keep taking like little shots at each other. Just maybe a couple months down the line, we'll hear more from one of their perspectives.
Yeah, one day it will get as big as who should have won, Parvati or Sandra. It should have been who's the better player, Cassidy or Carla.
Maybe.
But unfortunately, Hannah does get voted out here. V, do you have any final thoughts on Hannah as she left?
I think you're right. I think there was more to it than what the edit showed, and there was a lot of people voting with their hearts. So I think Chris sort of thinking Matt had a few more enemies. It all makes sense. And at this stage, I was still like, Chris win. So I didn't care who was staying or who left. It was muchness for me.
Yeah. How about you, Bandit? Any final thoughts on Hannah as she left?
I know she seems likable enough. I mean, yeah, I think that should be quite interesting to see for like a return if she does get asked back because, I mean, she's so likable and she connected to everyone out there. She just needs that strategy. So, yeah, I know from her preseason press, she talked about Australian Survivor, but I think more so she got out of that was like challenges and like the importance of being strong and physical and maybe even some of the twists. But now it'd be interesting to see her like play with a little bit more strategy because she just kind of was following maybe like a Lee or a Peg, like at least what I got in the edit for most of the game.
But then again, like that seems to be the winning strategy in Australian Survivor, though, right? Like you look at Liz, you look at Pia, they had, that one main ally who was, really big, really out there making all the moves, but then they get cut. And then you go on to win the game, right? But it did seem that her number one was Lee.
I think also her and Peg were quite close, but
and Peg
the final five.
Yeah, it was quite cool to see, because Band, I'm not sure how you've been feeling about Lee this whole season, but V and I have been very supportive of him, and so it was quite cool to see that. Because there's been a lot of comments online saying that he's sexist, he's misogynist, and whatnot. He only wants all men alliances, but then he even publicly said Hannah was always before Chris in every combination of the alliance. What's your thoughts on Lee this whole season?
Oh, see, it's just like bamboozling because I do somewhat agree with the fact that, I don't think that Lee is this massive misogynist, and I feel like he was someone that was willing to work with Hannah, even Sabrina pre-swap. So I think he would have obviously worked with women down the line, but it was kind of interesting because in the edit, we obviously got that Lee was pioneering this old guy's group just for his final juror questions. Hopefully, I'm not jumping too far ahead. But in his final jury questions, he was like, no, Christopher, you were involved with all this. And it was kind of this weird situation of we were kind of being built up in the edit that Christopher's going to get the better of Lee, and we were having all these talks about Lee being the figurehead of the group, only for it to be like, no, he's sticking it on Christopher, maybe trying to like gaslight him or something. But it was kind of like odd how that all ended throughout the season. But I mean, Lee, he's my fellow Northern Irelander, so it's cool to see him on the show. I love him.
I mean, let's talk about the final Tribal Council, because in my opinion, that was the most interesting part of these last 2 episodes, because we get these 3 opening statements, and V, I'm not sure about you. I know for once Tom is going to agree with me, because he sent me like 4 or 5 voice messages saying how much he hated the opening statements. But the opening statements was not very good. What did you think about that?
No, I thought the whole thing was a little bit of a shambles, and I just thought playing up the strategy a bit more would have been the go. I wanted to see Leilani try and claim something, as she did here and there. But look, I agree with her. The fact that she's there does make her powerful. Iron Woman, hear me roar. That's amazing, and she is. But also, no. So I just thought it was all a bit of a shambles. Pretty unforgettable, to be honest. Forgettable, not unforgettable, forgettable.
Definitely. How about you, Bandit? Because I feel like with a lot of these, every time they were questioned, they didn't give a good answer, but they didn't really give a bad answer either. It was sort of just floating in between the middle. What's your thoughts on this final trial?
Not offensive, I would say, were there like answers. Like, it was fine, but I don't think they articulated themselves too well. And maybe people might be DMing me after this podcast being like, I'm wrong. But I think that Christopher, Matthew, and Leilani, they hadn't watched Survivor before going out on the show. So I feel like also it's that aspect of Final Tribal Council being really foreign to them. And they're not really 100% sure about what they're supposed to pitch or how they're supposed to articulate themselves at the end. And even like the jury questions, I think they needed like a couple seconds to like think of an answer that they hadn't rehearsed, because there was these random questions that they were being asked that they didn't expect. But it was mostly fine. I think that Matthew could have owned the Tanuki move a bit more. I think he was a bit sheepish about trying to like talk about his involvement in that, but they were fine. I don't think they'll go down as the best jury performances, but not the worst.
Yeah, and as soon as I said his name, he finally arrives. Ho, ho, ho. It is the mad dog, Tom. Tom, how are you?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, brother. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. And I apologize, Bandit, for being so late. But I don't know if you know this, but on the TNT, we're all on like, 6-figure, paychecks each year. But I'm actually on 7. So Chris has had to
You're
keep
allowed
me
to
out
be a
of
wee bit
that.
late.
Yeah, a minimum,
All right, okay.
But it's a pleasure to meet you, Bandit. It's honestly, big fan.
Yeah, how does it feel, Tom? Because I'm not sure if you saw, but today Bandit had posted a video of you talking about him on our podcast.
I saw, man. I think I watched it 42 minutes after it uploaded. That's how
I
dedicated
got the comment.
Yeah, 3 steps ahead of you, Mucky, honestly.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. Tom is always 3 steps ahead of me. Tom, you missed out, but we've come to a conclusion on the bet. So you recall how last time we were on a podcast, we made a bet that if Peg Leg went out at Final 5, then I would have to give you and V something. But if Chris went out at Final 5, you and V would have to give me something. And
So
I unfortunately love that.
So what I'm hearing is I get free stuff for being late. I'm listening.
Anyway, so the deal that we all decided on without you said if we're ever somehow on a reality show together, I have to give you guys a advantage in the game. So if you're about to go out, I'll force myself to be medically evacuated. If I find an idol or an extra vote, I would have to give it to you. if I win the car award, I'd have to give you the car.
Could you imagine giving away a car and the host asks why, and you're like, "Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
We'll talk afterwards."
I'm more thinking about the medically evacuated one. Like, I'm about to get voted out, and you just decide to whip out a knife and just. Oh. No, we're gonna call off the vote ASAP.
Or,
There'll be no vote tonight.
Or if you're on the other tribe, Tom, you just mouth to me, "I'm going home," and I'll be like, "Oh wow, this tree sure does look high. I wonder what will happen if I climb off and just slip off."
See, I think I did that on the first episode, just for fun. Really, I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm voting
I'm
out.
going,
And
I'm
then watch you fall off the challenge.
Yeah. I'll be like, "Oh, is this the edge?" "Oh, yes, it is."
All right, I'm in.
All right, Tom, we were just talking about the final tribal council, and you quite famously did not like this final tribal council. Give us all your thoughts on it.
It just. I just want to make sure, because Bandit, I heard most of your thoughts, and I agree with the most of it, but I feel like you didn't, from memory, you didn't really dive too much into the final tribal performances. But I sent some voice messages to Mucky, just sort
I've
of.
heard about them. Yes.
Yes, yeah. I mean, is Leilani the new Tara from season 2 of Australian Survivor? Like, in terms of tribal performance. Oh yeah, I just started playing 7 days ago. Oh yeah, well, good job, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, Leilani's more likable than Tara by a landslide, but game wise, there's a similarity.
Yeah, I think for trying to pitch the fact that you played the game 7 days ago, and then also trying to claim that Christopher and Matthew, bringing them to the end, is also your moves. I think she did the best she could. I mean, she was likable, and like the editing at the final tribal council was so weird. It was just bashing on Matthew and Christopher to the point that I was like, could Leilani actually win this? She's the only one getting like a positive edit at this end game, but no, Matthew pulled it out.
I just can't believe like Chris just got demolished. I mean, I understand like they were sort of like had old school values, and obviously he's not much of an old school player the way he performed. But if I was Chris, I would have just, why don't you throw Matt under the bus? Yeah, so I actually found 2 idols, but this peanut next to me decided to go and actually I'm not going to take the idol out and then just leave it unlocked. Like, surely that's instantly like at least 1 vote gone for Matt. Like, just being that. But that's got, yeah. I think Chris should have played more dirty. I think, why do we find the 18 nicest British people in the world? Like, honestly, I don't want the 18 nicest British. I want Gordon Ramsay in there. Like just yelling at people and swearing at them for no reason. That'd be great.
We do have a comment here from Will saying, "From my couch, it looks like Chris won." Tom,
Yes.
when you were watching this final tribal council, did you think, or even just before going into final tribal, did you think that Chris had a chance to win?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think he played the best game by a country mile. I mean, like, just to be able to survive the bottom. I mean, yeah, you got to fault people for getting onto the bottom in the first place, but someone with that many abs is always going to be perceived as a threat at one point in the game. So I think like he did an amazing job. He flipped Maddie, and the fact that like he didn't own that at the final tribal, like like they saying like, oh, everyone owns their own moves. I'm like, bro, you literally pretty much single-handedly got yourself off the bottom and controlled the final like quarter or fifth of the game. Like, own that. That's crazy. That he just went so polite at the end. It's just ridiculous.
So Vee, I feel like Chris is at a spot where you can kind of tell the jury's a wee bit against you, or they want to do is just keep bashing you. How do you then respond to the jury? Because there have been many different cases. You've got like George, for example, an Australian survivor, who just keeps owning up everything he does. Like, yeah, I blindsided you. What are you going to do about that? You've got Tony and Kagayan, who just accepts all the criticism, but he keeps his temperament and just gives some solid, logical answers back. And then you get Sherry from one of my favorite seasons, fans' first favorites, Karamoan, who just, kind of breaks down and just starts arguing, yeah, but I'm here and you're there, so suck it, right? So how do you sort of react to a situation like this to try and get more jury votes your way?
Well, I think like Bandit said, we saw Chris starting to be a bit sheepish and apologetic, and like Tom said, should have owned that he was controlling the vote, that he was the puppet master and Maddie was the puppet, and just lean into it, because that's all he's got. He doesn't have friends. He won't be more likable in that instance than someone like Leilani or even Maddie. The only currency he had was gameplay, and that's the only thing he could have done. Would it have gotten him the win? No, probably not, because I think the jury was very set, and unfortunately Lee seemed to be the most bitter of them all, so I went right off him in that moment, because he just looked scorned. So yeah, I think from the couch we could all go, well done, Chris. We can see, yes, you won this because you engineered the end of the game, but everyone wants to like who they like. So I don't think he had a hope after how it all went down. I think, was I to watch it again, I'd see the signs of like, oh, no, he's not going to, he doesn't have the friends, and he needed friends.
Yeah. So, Bandit, what do you think about Matthew as a winner overall? Because I feel like we didn't really see a lot of him at the start. Around the tribe swap, he was starting to make some strategic talks, but he didn't really have any moves. But sort of from the Tanuke move onwards, he was sort of more of this bigger strategic character in the game. What do you think about Matthew as an overall winner?
I think he's pretty good. I don't think he's going to be like the top winner for like dominance or anything, but I think it's really impressive. I don't even think he got his name wrote down throughout the season, which I think was quite impressive. No. And like, well, at the swap, he seemed to have insulated himself well with the likes of Lee. And I think even though like Christopher was obviously making bigger moves and he was more outwardly strategic, I feel like Matthew always had the agency and always had the ability to be able to side with like a Peg Leg and a Hannah, or work with like Lawrence and Nathan. So I think in that aspect, he was able to like outplay Christopher by being able to be better socially and better social verse. And I feel like he had a lot more final three options as well than Christopher.
Yeah. And Tom, I know you just love Leilani so much. How does it make you feel that she tied for second place with Chris?
I think she's a great character and everything, but she was rubbish, like game wise. Like, let's be real. And she is the only person who got voted out and like stayed in just the most like, oh yeah, we'll just do one non-elimination. That's fine. But actually, I have a question for Bandit. I'm curious. Yeah. So if you were Christopher, and Lee was doing his whole spiel about basically saying, no, you're lying right now. I never said anything about what was it about
the All Guys Alliance.
Yeah, the All Guys Alliance and stuff, which I'm pretty sure he did. Like was Lee like lying there, or yeah? Anyway, what would you say in response to try and save yourself from that situation? You've just been called a liar by a member of the jury who you don't want to piss off, but also like you have to find a way to save yourself in that situation. Like what would you do?
I think it's really tough because we see the power shift, and it's even like that cliched thing in the game where like now the jury has all the power, they decide. So obviously you want to call out Lee, but you want to do it in a way that A, doesn't burn his vote, and B, doesn't burn all the other people by coming off as argumentative. But I feel like when Lee was, from what we saw in the edit, kind of overplaying Christopher's involvement with the All Guys Alliance and making up the fact he wanted to vote out all the women, I think you do need to some degree push back, because like I think he pushed back once and then Lee was like, no, you're wrong, and he was like, okay, right, you just talk away, Lee. And you could even see from that point on Christopher was like quietly sulking and was quite bitter. So I feel like you have to like stand your ground while not coming off as like a bit of a prick, like you have to be able to say, no, like listen, this was my game, but what you're saying about me isn't 100% correct.
Yeah, I think that's smart. I think I honestly say up front, like, look, Lee, I know I'm probably gonna like burn your vote 100% here, but this is like the truth, at least in my opinion. You might not agree with it, but to me, you were trying to make an all guys alliance, and that is why I did such and such and such. And basically, you're talking to the rest of the jury. You're not talking to Lee. You already know you've lost his vote at that point. Like, there's no point trying to save that vote. Just try and save as many others as you can.
It would be nice if he could have like quoted something that Lee said in front of himself, Doug and Peg, like potentially to be able to say, no, well, he said that, and you guys, you can back me up. So that way, you're kind of using the jury against him and trying to outnumber him. But it's always going to be tough arguing with a jury member.
Yeah. So Vee, I guess just going off this topic, when you sort of know that you've lost a jury vote, like at what point do you try stop scavenging for that jury vote and you just, move on to try to secure everyone else's?
Well, I think it must be such a whirlwind, honestly, to try and sit there, look presentable, like you're confident in what you're saying, come up with something to say whilst counting everyone there going, yes, no, yes, 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 no, 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 and recalibrating that based on what they say. It must be an absolute nightmare. So, I mean, if this is Vee talking, me personally, I think I would be utterly overwhelmed and probably make a giant mess of it while just trying to get my point across.
Yeah.
But I think Bandit's right. You sort of have to, and Tom, you sort of have to let things go and go, okay, I can just explain my game and stand true by your game. Those who like it will like it. Those who don't won't. You're not going to make new friends based on what you say. You're only going to be able to stand by things that have already happened. Yeah. So you got to just let some things go.
Yeah. So Tom, I know that you're a massive fan of Australian Survivor. We did see a massive shift between Australian Survivor 2016 and Australian Survivor 2017 in terms of characters and gameplay. Do you think Survivor UK could potentially do the same?
Well, I feel like at times Survivor UK was like a 1 to 5 season in regards to like American Survivor eras, and then at other times it was like a 13 to an 18 in terms of like era. Like it just sort of swapped, and like all of a sudden, like one day talking about, oh, like I really didn't like what such and such did. It really rubbed me the wrong. Like flipping Hannah, who was the Nathan gloating about literally just being gifted an idol from the winner's stupidity, by the way. Yeah, like, oh, I'm sorry. If I win the lottery, do you not want me to like be happy about it? Anyway, so Hannah's being all like, oh yeah, no, that's not really good. And then like another day, like he got Tanuke talking about like, this like split plurality vote, and like, well, that's not very seasons 1 to 5, So I don't know. I don't know what to expect for the next season. I'm expecting some more rubbish music, but other than that, I think like there's a lot of positive, I suppose, things that can come from the next season, because like they really demonstrate some interesting gameplay at times. Overall, I think a good cast, like a 7 out of 10 maybe casting wise. Some good challenges, and I think there was lots of positives. But it's definitely hard to tell like how the next season's going to be played.
Yeah. How about you, Bandit? What do you think Survivor UK season 2 will have in store for us? Do you think it would make that massive jump like a 2017?
I was like constantly agreeing with you, and I was pointing up to your side of the screen because like I feel like it's going to follow the exact same trajectory as Australian Survivor, where you can even see just between the 1 year of seasons like 2016 and 2017, there were so many other big game players. I mean, we had Luke, we had Jericho. These are like icons in now, just not just Australian Survivor, but also Survivor. And I feel like at least now, like the UK, it has struggled to get American shows on its like TV screen and be able to access them, like a VPN and stuff. So I feel like it's good now that we have our own version of Survivor UK that's like modern, that people can actually check out, because I think the start of the game, a lot of people struggled with what the actual rules of the game were and like kind of like the philosophies of the game. So at least now we have like a bit of a starting block that people can say, okay, we actually know what a merge is, we know what a swap is, okay, we can expect this stuff.
Yeah, I did love that clip you added into your video, Band. It was like even Leilani had no idea what a merge was. He just played the clip of Joel being like, "We are merged." And Leilani was like, oh, "Is that a good thing?" It's like,
it's like, how do you not know what a merge is? Like,
yeah. I would love to hear your opinion on this though, Banda. Come on here from Will. Chris gave Matt one job: shut the crab trap properly. What was your thought process throughout the entire comedy of errors, as I like to call it?
Just sadness, disappointment, and then just laughing at the screen for about 5 minutes. I mean, when you go through all the effort to like undo the lock and then pull it open, like you might as well just grab the idol and just shove it in like your pants or something. And I know that people were even discussing like, bring a rock with you, just put the rock in the bag, put it back in, lock up the cage. Like, did you really need to keep the idol in there and risk it? And then just the fact he didn't even lock the latch, which is like, he locked the padlock, but he didn't lock the latch, which clips into the padlock. So Nathan just waltzes up and he just thinks it's Christmas. Like, imagine that from Nathan's perspective. Like, what on earth, how that calamity happened.
I think, in my opinion, that was the best part of the whole season. Like, yes, I love the Doug and Taneke, episodes back to back. Those were great to watch. But just, I've been rewatching Pirates of the Caribbean recently, especially in the first one. I loved Jack Sparrow and Will Turner's dynamic of this comedic duo, but they also work really well together. It was kind of like the opposite. It's a great comedic duo who don't really work well together with Chris, and Matt. How about you, Tom? I think I asked you this, but what was your favorite moment throughout this entire season?
I can tell you what was my least favorite moment. It was probably the loved one, the loved ones, like opening the letters, and then they had like in the background like the
Serenade us now.
You are my sunshine, baby, and I really miss you right now. Yeah.
And it goes on for 30 minutes.
Oh, for 30 minutes. I was
Oh
like,
my
oh my gosh,
God.
now please. I mean, don't do that. That'll demonetize us.
Yeah.
I think,
Save that for when Mucky goes on a reality TV show.
yeah. I mean, I need to get on before you, Mucky. I'm sorry. I need to get on the next season. I got my villains buff right here.
I'm
and
so jealous of that.
So good.
I got given it as well. Didn't have to pay or anything. That was my manipulation skills on hand. Australian Survivor Channel 10. If you're listening, no. So
I'd love if your next audition tape, Tom, is just you just showing the buff. It's like, how do I get this? How do I get this? Well, was it from you guys? I manipulated my way to get the buff.
And it was the coolest buff ever in Australian Survivor history. Yeah. No, I was gonna ask Bandit as well. Sorry. If you heard the story of Matt's muck up, in terms of retrieving the idol, like while you were sitting on the jury, would that like instantly like take him out of the race for your vote?
I wouldn't instantly take it out, but I would be asking probably several questions at the final tribal council and trying to understand it, because like that was just crazy. And like the fact that they didn't even split the votes at the Nathan tribal council, I mean, that was so risky for Matthew to not end up getting idled out, especially because Nathan was annoyed at him.
But also Lawrence goes out because of Maddie's blunder. So if I was Lawrence, no way am I voting for Maddie. Like, I mean, of course he didn't know about that, and that's why Chris should have mentioned it. But like, if I found out that I got out because my mate, because Mucky's an idiot, like, yeah, Mucky, you're not getting my vote. I don't care if you're up against Leilani and Tara, you're not getting my vote.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, because like,
wow,
Lawrence, like he seemed to be a person that like had like this lots of game knowledge. So I think he'd be one of the people that would be more likely to vote for Christopher, because he was like on the jury and he was like, Leilani, you were a goat, and he was explaining what a goat was, and I was like, okay, Peridium, okay, I see. Writing out all these Survivor terminologies. We didn't see that throughout the game, but yeah, I think it was just Matthew had such a good social game.
I bet you're glad you weren't on that season. Like, you wouldn't have been able to do anything like strategic at all. Hey.
Yeah, I'll wait for a future season.
Yeah, good idea.
Are you thinking of applying for the next season? Bandit?
Potentially, yeah, maybe. See, in the real world, I work as like staff relief in like early years situations, so like nurseries, daycares, and stuff. So if a staff member's sick, they call upon me. So I can't really be like, that job that I promised you. I'm kind of going to the Dominican Republic for 6 weeks, but I'll be back. Okay, just leave the kids; they'll be grand. So it's working out that thing. I've got uni graduation this year, but someday we'll try and make it work.
Nice. One day, brother. Maybe one day we'll all end up on a random crossover international season. New Zealand, Oz, and UK.
Bandit. Congratulations, Bandit.
Thank you.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yay!
all season long Bandit. I'm not sure if you watch all of our recaps, but Tom has somehow just whipped out all these different celebration stuff. He can get fireworks going, thumbs up, thumbs down, ribbons. I don't know how he does it.
It's like facial recognition or what? Like,
come on.
Because I have seen that in the podcast. Like, you'll be randomly discussing, and then a massive rainbow will just fly over Tom, and it's like, okay, that's there for the next minute.
You know what they say, Bandit? When you mess with the bull, you get the horns. Come on, do it.
That would have been cool.
Wait.
That would have been cool.
Oh, there's a really cool one. Oh, that's embarrassing.
So, it started off great, Tom, but no, just embarrassing yourself, mate. Like,
I'll just stay here in the corner. You guys keep talking.
How about you, V? What are you hoping for in the next season?
Hoping for just keep the momentum going. Let's not go back to the. Can't take you seriously. I have to block his screen. Just not keeping the momentum going. Not going back to the. There we go. The pre-merge series 1 of US Survivor kind of talk of getting people out because they've been annoying. Speaking of, just keeping that momentum going that we saw towards the end and going, I think we can see more new school Survivor on this show. We don't need to teach everyone what Survivor is.
Yeah. So Bandit. I just can't keep it straight. So Bandit, if there was one thing you could change from the first season of Survivor UK, what would you change?
Like, I know in the UK we're like, there we
go.
Yeah, Thomas bringing out the fire. I know that like we're like very adverse to social strategy shows in the UK, but I feel like having a few more people that would have had an understanding of Survivor and the game and are in these like fan or super fan kind of archetypes would have elevated the gameplay, especially at the start. And I think like maybe there's like probably like 4 super fans on the cast out of a cast of 18. So like even people like Shy, like he was like a very big super fan. You can kind of tell he had to like keep his gameplay to himself because he couldn't play too outwardly strategic or else people were going to be like, Shy, you're getting voted out. We don't trust you.
I mean, but they said that anyway.
Anyway, it's like it didn't really matter. They did it. But, well, I would ask Tom what we would change, but I know he's just instantly going to say either Leilani or the soundtrack. So no point.
No, nothing's wrong with Leilani. Leilani was overall a net positive, unlike the soundtrack. I mean, I liked half the songs, but not on Survivor.
Fair enough. So V, is there anything else that we should? He's brought back the CD.
Need more Olivia Rodrigo, and that's what I'm saying. Anyway,
they can't afford Olivia Rodrigo.
V. Is there anything else that we need to talk about for Survivor UK?
I think Bandit said at the start, changing up some of those challenges to include some balance, some puzzles, giving people like Ren a chance to shine, just changing it up a little bit, I think would be a really good idea. I really hope it is renewed. Do we know for sure if it is or not?
Yeah, applications are out for season 2.
Oh, yay! Okay, good.
Sorry.
Oh, good. So we'll, hopefully see them continue that momentum and continue the upward spike. But Yeah, I liked it. I liked the show. I didn't trip over the music. I liked it.
Ugh.
So, hey, Bandit, if there was one challenge or twist from the, I guess, American Survivor, because that's where a lot of things like the challenges were copied from, that could have been incorporated into Survivor UK, which one that was not shown in season 1 would you love to see play in Survivor UK?
Oh, so I'll help you. I'll do both a twist and a challenge. So the
Okay.
challenge, I think we need a blindfolded challenge because they are
Yes.
just so much fun. Like Island of the Idols, the one where just everyone's just walking into things, and then you have the puzzle at the end. That would be so much fun. And then a twist. I really like from Australian Survivor the idols, but they don't work on your own tribe. You have to swap them with someone else.
Yes.
Like it was David and Sean that had them. That created a lot of fun TV, so I'd love those. And make the idols last longer than 3 tribal councils. How about that?
Yeah. I mean, I felt like it was a great way to force players to play them, but unfortunately, when the fans get the idols, they're like, "Oh, if I play this, it'll create a target on my back, so I'm just not going to play it."
I think it would have been better if it was like, for example, Doug, like he has the idol, but it's only 3 tribal councils that just happen in the game. So Doug actually couldn't play his idol before he goes to tribal council because he was safe 3 tribal councils. But I feel like if it was like, okay, Doug, your next 3 tribal councils, then that's a lot more interesting because now he's got to think about if he plays it at his 2nd tribal council or maybe his 3rd, or if he doesn't play it at all. That'll be a bit more interesting.
Yeah. And Tom, one question for you. If there was one song that they could have put in that they did not put in, what would it have been?
I don't know, background tribal music. Like I don't need I love Muse are my favorite band. I don't need their cover of Feeling Good in the middle of an episode. Like I really don't. You know. Too much of the things you love at once is not a vibe. But I've got a question for everyone because it's completely off topic, really. I mean, half off topic. Is everyone keen for Survivor Australia Titans vs Rebels? Because I'm G'd up to see the 24 people they chose over me and how much they failed entertainment wise and strategy wise. That's what I'm saying.
Well, anyway, Tom, I know that we're going to be here every week saying how shit these players are compared to us. You know, every game move they do, we would be like, we would have done better.
Yeah, do you reckon Channel 10 will appreciate that if I'm like roasting their choices? Like,
but then again, you know, quite a famous story. Bandit, you may know this, but Chappies, who's a big fan favorite in Survivor South Africa, when he applied to be on the show, the producers really did not like him at first. They thought he was just this cocky, arrogant, you know, like, yes, he's very positive, but the whole reason why they casted him was like to give him a big life lesson. They thought he was going to be out like really early, but then he became like the fan favorite and still is one of the most popular probably Survivor players of all time now. Like he's
yeah, and I mean he like Chappie. I do think if he is watching, I do think he'd disagree. Like he is cocky, like that's his personality, but he's cocky in like a fun, entertaining way that like is really good on TV, and that's why he's a fan favorite. So
yeah,
maybe we could get our own Chappies on Survivor UK, our own version.
Maybe it's Tom.
Cocky. It's a shame I'm not cocky, really.
Yeah. But we do have one final comment here from Will. I really wanted to see Pig win. My second pick was Chris, but we got Matt. Nate needed a free auto every vote. Kind of sad, lol. Well, Tom, you're in here for this part of conversation. Pig Leg and Hannah going up back to back. What's your thoughts on that?
Do we ever figure out why Hannah's such a threat? Like, she's like, honestly, what hearing Leilani like proudly say, I got Hannah out and I brought these 2 boys with me, even though one of them was immune and therefore invincible, and therefore he brought himself there.
And
anyway,
he's just trying to get Christopher out every round.
Every round. Yeah, why on earth was Hannah a threat? I get she did the least like bad things, but also she was just there. She existed. Congratulations. I exist too, you know. I don't brag about it every day. So why should she win?
I think you brought up a good point, Bandit, where it was a very like honor-based cast, and Hannah brought a lot of honor to the table. So that yeah, don't worry, Tom. I I love how even though Tom is muted, his actions say like 10 times more of what he was going to say.
I'm a performer. Hello, Channel 10 and Endemol Shine.
Sorry. It's kind of like when we were talking about Survivor New Zealand, it's kind of like 2016 edition where like Avi ends up beating Tom, and Tom was just not respected, even though he had like the bigger underdog story and like debatably like more moves and stuff. But it's like they're just gonna sometimes give it to the people that just like it more.
Yeah, Tom played the best game in my opinion, hands down.
Tom always plays the best game. I don't know if you guys know this. Okay, wait. No, they've announced the cast, so it's all good. Yeah, but I sort of knew this ahead of time. Actually, I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know if they're like pulling my leg or not. But apparently, there's a Tom on this next season of Australian Survivor, and I'm gutted if there is one because there was no Toms prior to this. Think of how common the name is. There were no Toms in any of the Channel 10 Australian Survivors. So if this guy's coming on and giving Tom if he's a pleb, honestly, I want to be the first Tom winner. Think in flipping American Survivor, you got Tommy Sheehan winner, Tom Westman winner, JT Thomas first perfect game winner. Like we got a bit of a legacy, and I want to uphold that. This Thomas guy in New Zealand, by the sounds of things, let us down, but he's a Kiwi, so we don't count that. Anyway, floor is yours, Mucky.
Well, Vee, I'll just have to hope that this Tom guy is the first boot because only Michael on Australian Survivor was like the second or third boot. So
I'm yet to see a Verity on any of these franchises. So ever on reality TV. So I've got to be the first at some point. Hey.
Yeah, eventually. But I just want to say, everyone, thank you all so much for coming on to this podcast. It's especially for us. It's Boxing Day. I know in America, has it officially reached Boxing Day for them yet, or is it still Christmas?
Yeah, they're 5 hours behind, so yeah, it would be about 3 or 4 in the morning for them. So
okay, it's Boxing Day for everyone then. I hope everyone had a merry, jolly old Christmas, and that you will spend a lot of great time with your loved ones, with your friends. Got filled up on all different kinds of turkey, ham, or if you're vegetarian, grass. But until the next time, I'm not sure what the podcast will have for the rest of this year, but next year we do have a good lineup of Australian Survivor. I believe the challenge will be out around then. American Survivor will be starting out pretty soon after Australian Survivor. Hey Bandit, where can people find you from our channel?
Yeah, so you can check me out, Bandit Survivor on YouTube. I go by Bandit Survivor content also, and I would do mostly Survivor US content, but I've also uploaded a Survivor UK review, and I'll be doing a few more reviews, especially on Survivor US. Season 45 just finished, so I'll get around to it eventually when uni stops kicking my ass.
Yeah, I just want to say, Vee, it was so lovely to do this podcast with you. It was the first time I ever got to meet and speak to you, and it's been an absolute blast finally getting to meet and talk to you.
Thanks for having me. It was so exciting to watch the first proper UK Survivor of the new era. So yeah, glad we did it.
Yeah. And Tom, what a magical story. You started off being the only person who was on board the Sneaky Steve and Rogue bandwagon. And now we've done a whole podcast series together. So I just want to say thank you so much, brother, for being a part of this. I've really enjoyed your company here.
Oh, you're sounding as mushy and disgusting as the UK people during the flipping love letters, honestly. All you're missing is I love you in the background, But no, yeah, it's been a pleasure. Been a pleasure as always. I'll let you thank Bandit, or I could thank him before you, and then you just sound like a jerk compared to me.
I'll let you thank Bandit.
I didn't have anything planned, so you can do it.
Well, Bandit, thank you so much for coming on, brother. As we started a podcast, we've been trying to do this since the first episode, but it just hasn't quite worked out. But thankfully, because of a head injury, we finally could make it work. So thank you so much, Bandit, for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a blast.
Yeah, and if you're new to the channel, please smash that subscribe button down below. We've got so much content coming out for 2024. It's going to be a very exciting year for us. I'm Mucky Hope. You can find me on Instagram at Mucky Hope. You can find Tom at Tom Mac. Vee, are you on Instagram or any socials that you want to plug?
What's a computer? What's
I don't know.
Instagram? What's all the no, I'm not on any. No, I am on stuff, but nothing fun. So
Nothing
feel free to not subscribe to me.
How about you, Bandit? Any socials that you want to plug?
Yeah, Bandit Survivor YouTuber on Instagram, and then obviously just my YouTube channel where I do weird things.
Nice. Yeah, make sure you give everyone a nice juicy follow and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Have a Merry Christmas and a wonderful New Year, and we will see you all next time. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.
Peace.